So this is a bit of a random video. Strangely, the Astra videos that I do are the most watched ones on YouTube. I'm guessing it is an incredibly common car. So this is an Astra H. It's a 2007 car, and it's the 1.3 Get a Life diesel, or 1.3 CDTi. So this is just a filter change, air filter, oil filter and oil change. Right, so the first thing we've done is to warm the car nicely up. So what that's meant, I've driven it up and down the road for 10 minutes and now it's nice and warm. And we need to work out where the drain fitting is. Why would I struggle with that? Anyway, so a nice level ground, go under the car. I don't know if this is going to pick it up. Let's have a look. Hopefully you can see I put a bowl there. Click on that. And you should be able to see a ratchet there. And I'll zoom in for you. So at the back of the sump there is a fitting. And it's a Torque 45 sized fitting. So I've got my ratchet in there, and that should be able to be pulled towards the front of the car to undo it, and I've got the bowl ready to drain the oil. Right, let's see if this comes undone. There's every chance somebody will have over tightened it, but it was probably me that did it last, so I've only got myself to blame. Oh yeah, there it is. Okay, so that has cracked. Hopefully that will now be hand tight. It is. I am going to let the plug just go in. There we go. So that was quite tight, but it's probably an O-ring, and it's just stuck on the O-ring. So that's going to take a little while to drain. I'm just going to pull that towards here a bit. So while that's draining, I think we'll do the air filter. Okay, so while we're draining the oil, what I tend to do is I take out that fill point there and I put it on the bonnet jam. I know that's a bit of a daft thing to do, but what that means to me is I haven't put the plug back in the sump. I have in the past accidentally forgot to put the plug back in the sump and happily put 4 litres in a mini engine before, only to realise it was going straight on the drive below. So that to me says, 1, there's air getting in to let the oil come out, and 2, I haven't put the plug back in. Next thing we're going to look at is the air filter. So here's the airbox here, and it would look like there are quite a few little fittings here. In fact, I've got one hidden there, a couple on the sides. Yeah, so there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So in total there are 5 fittings holding the cover down. One is kind of hidden underneath. I suppose that's a mass airflow sensor there. I don't know if that's picking it up. So the first thing I'm going to do is just undo one of the clamps to move this out of the way. Okay, so I've undone that clamp, and that allows me to take that right out of the way and get all the fasteners out. So now undoing the last one. This is a Torque 25 bit that I'm going to use, and you can see I've just put a little bit of tissue over the oil fill. You can guarantee if I was to drop anything, it would go straight down that open hole. If you don't like that idea, then you could obviously leave the cap on. Okay, so that is all 5 of those undone. We should be able to just lift that off. Okay, so I've got the tripod out so you can see what I'm doing. Obviously all of these are undone, and I should be able to lift that up out of the way. It is wedged under here, so you're just going to have to lift it and wiggle a bit. Now, again, be careful of your open hole. Put that there. The underside of this should be nice and clean. So that should be nice and clean because that is the clean air side. Underneath the filter should be relatively dirty because that's where all the dirt has entered the filter. So this should be lift out, and as you can see, got leaves and all sorts in there. And the filter there, again, probably left it far too long. There you go. So I'm just going to have a little clean out in the bottom of this filter housing. If it's a windy day, you want to be very careful that none of this dirt goes up that pipe, because that's obviously where the clean air is. So it's not too bad today. I'm just going to clear out debris and put a new filter in. Okay, so I've cleaned out some of the stuff in there, and this is my nice new filter. Make sure it goes in and sits nicely on the lip all the way around. And once you're happy with that, we can then put the top back on. Again, I think I'm just going to have to get this corner in first. Awkward. There it goes. Make sure that pipe's not trapped, but actually clips down there and on there. Then we can do that top down. Just a little nip on these, don't go mental. It is plastic after all. There we go, put that back on. Make sure the clamp's at the top, and then we can push this back on. There we go. Right, do that clamp back up now so I don't forget. Okay, so I have to be honest, I'm doing a bit more than just an oil change. I'm actually doing a flush as well. So I've put the sump plug back in, and I've just topped it up. Top the oil up with flushing oil. This is a complete flushing oil, not an additive. And all I'm going to do is run this on the drive. You mustn't run the car on the road when you're doing this. Just run it on the drive, no load, and let it just circulate for 10 minutes. And then I'll drain it again. Okay, so we're now going to move on to the oil filter. And that lives under this housing here. There are two torque fittings, one down the side. I'll just zoom in so you can see where that is. Hopefully the camera will focus. Yeah, there's one there. There's one on the other side. I don't know if that's going to focus. Are you going to focus for me? Yeah, right down there. Unfortunately, as you can see, I am missing that one. And then there is a nut at the back there. So the nut is 10mm, and the two torque fittings are torque 30. So I'm going to undo those and take that metal cover off. So the fasteners are now removed, so this cover should now just pull off, which it does, and that then exposes the plastic filter housing underneath. So that's the next job, find the socket that fits that and try to undo that. Okay, so that hexagon on top of the oil filter housing is 27mm, and you can see I've put a little bit of cloth down here in case there's any oil spillage. You've got the turbo next door to it, so you don't really want oil getting on it. I'm going to do this live because I don't know how tight it should be. It should not be tight at all. But yeah, it's not. There we go. Very gentle. In fact, it says on it, as I turn it, I can see it says 25 Newton meters. Okay, so there is a bit of oil in there, so I'll just let that drain as I lift it. Right, there we go, I'll take that out. Okay, so that is the filter and the housing. You can see those teeth on the filter, that's what engage with the underneath of the housing. So I've pulled that off so you can see. Okay, so this is the new oil filter, and with the oil filter you actually get a spare O-ring. So you need to take the old O-ring off the plastic housing and very carefully push this back on. So before I put the new O-ring on, I'm just cleaning up the area where it sits. And also, once you've put it on, just lubricate it with a little bit of clean oil. that's on. Okay, new O-ring is on and lubricated with some fresh oil, and then I've pushed the new filter back in and that is actually retained. So I can now screw that back down the hole. Okay, I don't know if this will really work for the camera, but the oil in the white bucket on the left is the oil that was drained from the engine originally, and in the yellow container we have flushing oil that was in the engine for 10 minutes. So that definitely has done something. Whether it's good or bad, I don't know, but it's definitely removed quite a lot of carbon. I always like to do this on camera. I've got a torque range set to 25 Newton meters. So I haven't yet nipped up there. It's started to nip, and that is it. Very light pressure. And there is an arrow on the cap. In fact, I'll need the camera so you can see it. There is an arrow on the cap. I don't know if you can see that. Come down. So there is actually an arrow here. Come on. It's actually an arrow here which says drain, and I'm guessing it refers to this drain here. I don't really know. But that was 25 Newton meters. Okay, so the plastic oil filter housing is in there and torqued out. So as you can see, I've put the metal cover back on, and I've tightened up the nut, and the one torque fitting in my case should be two. Okay, so sump plug is back in. Let's try and get some oil back in this thing. I suppose you could use a funnel if you want. I've just put a bit of tissue around there in case I make a mess. Don't pour 5 litres in your engine, pour about 2 litres and check the level. Okay, so that is 2 litres added, and you can just see it on the bottom of the dipstick. So it's probably no more than about 2.5 litres, max 3. But I put 2.5 litres in and see what it looks like. Okay, so that is the air filter done, oil filter done, and a complete oil change, including a flush. The flush might not be necessary for you, but in my case I've left it far too long between oil changes, and it definitely needed a good flush. One occasion I was driving through town and the turbo just stopped working, or seized up, or ground to a halt, and the car literally had no power. I had to really pump the throttle and get the exhaust gases moving to get that turbo spinning again, so I'm guessing it was very clogged up maybe. Anyway, it's now had a flush, so it should be good for another few thousand miles. Now for the reference, it was 2.5 litres to get that to midway on the dipstick. I will now run the car for a few days and then check it again and top up if necessary.